At the end of Resident Evil 7, protagonist Ethan Winters said,
"When one door closes, another opens."
Well, with the wait finally over, I think every die-hard Resident Evil fan knew exactly what Ethan was alluding to. Resident Evil Village is totally packed with doors, baby! Woohoo! Knobs, handles, hinges, and knockers galore. I played through all 127 versions of Resident Evil Village's demos that were all made specifically available depending on what platform you were playing and where you were playing. For example, at 36 minutes past 4 in the morning in Zimbabwe, you could play the demo for 12.5 minutes on a Game Boy Color. You've got to hand it to Capcom and their marketing team. They know how to push a game, but after playing through the demos and Capcom describing certain areas of the game to be some kind of wild ride at a theme park, the demos did take the edge off that excitement a little bit, and instead of feeling the thrills and spills of jumping on board the Resident Evil Village hype train, when it actually came to the full game, I felt a bit more like... Now that's not detracting from the enjoyment I've had playing the game this weekend, but next time I'll definitely be going in blind. I'm going to avoid any late game spoilers, but the story gets off to a very typical Resident Evil start, with award-winning caliber writing and off-the-cuff comments that can explain what's happened over the past year, with Ethan entering into the family lifestyle and trying to flush away any bad vibes left over from Resident Evil 7, and also filling us in on how he suddenly learned how to handle a vast array of weaponry since the previous game.
Chris moving us here, military training, it all happened so fast.
Oh, he's had military training. Yeah, well, that explains everything then, doesn't it? Ethan's wife Mia has become a hostile, passive-aggressive and just unbearably rude individual since the previous game.
But if you're gonna keep sulking all evening, maybe you shouldn't have any.
And after the kidnapping of Ethan's daughter and setting off into the gorgeous setting of the village, we soon notice that these local folks from the titular village are all kinds of fucked up, and whatever is causing this, it definitely starts off by making them very unpleasant and rude too.
Who's this? Took your damn time.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're not from this village.
What the fuck is this?
Umbrella must have been concocting the world's most severe anti-politeness bioweapon because there's no manners in this village at all. I mean, Ethan has been getting an earful from Mia and now this? The poor bastard. Thankfully though, Chris Redfield shoots Mia to shit at the beginning of the game, which should hopefully save Ethan some money on those hefty divorce fees that he's been racking up. Tell us, Ethan, how many times did you try and divorce Mia again? Jesus. After a fairly long intro, the real action begins, and action is a key word here because I think the amount of action versus the amount of horror on display might piss some fans off, but I think there's clear intentions from Capcom to have the best of both worlds. Personally, I didn't feel the horror elements were that strong, but as a big fan of Resident Evil 4, which is a clear source of inspiration here, Village is jam-packed with action in a bleakly unsettling location, and overall the game definitely benefits from that. There's a shit ton of ammo available, removing any survival horror factors immediately, and the gunplay has an almost identical feel to Resident Evil 7, with enemies being pretty bullet spongy, and nailing those headshots is not an easy task, with them dodging and swaying out of your line of fire like
Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man.
I did eventually get my eye in though, and once that happens it's a nice solid feel with good responsive feedback and some pretty gratifying headshot explosions on display too. The visuals are pretty breathtaking at times, but sadly they can also suffer occasionally too, with some really low-res textures tarnishing an otherwise stunning environment. The setting overall is blended together fairly seamlessly from area to area, with the village acting as the central hub to other branching off areas that most of the time look pretty stunning as well. I played on PS5 with ray tracing turned off, keeping it at a stable 60 frames per second, but it is playable at 40 frames per second with it turned on. Just a quick mention for PC players too, there's no ray tracing for Nvidia users just yet, with AMD holding all the ray tracing goodness for now. With the village acting as a central hub, backtracking is common, as it is with most Resident Evil games, and they've done a great job of keeping the journey exciting throughout, with surprises waiting around pretty much every corner. The biggest surprise to me though was the lack of thought that's gone into the puzzles. They're barely puzzles at all, with solutions too often being found in a conveniently placed note or clue of some kind that's only a few steps away from where you are. Capcom have clearly listened too much to the modern day gamer complaints in asking for their games to be made easier, less scary, less focus on puzzles. I mean, for fuck's sake people, where are we heading?
What color is a carrot?
Carrot? I think it's a carrot, but I don't know about carrots. I don't know nothing about that.
There's been some minor additions and some gentle little tweaks applied to the winning formula of Resident Evil, with the new crafting system being much more intuitive and giving a more on-the-go feel to it rather than the previous very manual process of selecting items to combine. This process has become much more automated. Capcom have even, and completely randomly, included the need to hunt animals for their meat to take to the big stonking Duke fella, who not only acts as your one-stop shop for all your monster slaying needs, but he can also whip up a nice mean dish for Ethan to devour. I mean, looking at the size of him, I'm surprised it even makes it out of the kitchen without bite marks all over it, but when the dishes do come, they provide Ethan with a permanent boost to his health or blocking strength, just to name a few positive traits, and this has clearly been taken straight out of another one of Capcom's hits, Monster Hunter World. One area where they've remained totally true to the classic Resident Evil franchise is the utterly ludicrous and nonsensical storyline, with absurd one-liners and scenarios that go way over the top. But that's Resident Evil. That's what I love about Resident Evil. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever the amount of times that Ethan gets the living shit kicked out of him, like... What the fuck was that? I mean, I'm all for crazy and unfathomable moments in games, but after all that, Ethan should clearly have no functioning limbs left whatsoever. Surely most Resident Evil fans are just dying to ask Ethan the question that we all want to know.
How the hell are you alive?
One area that gutted me early on in my playthrough was my love for the traditional Resident Evil save room music. Game after game they've produced some of the most alluringly peaceful music to give the player that much needed breather from whatever nasties have been relentlessly stalking them. I have such a love for some of these themes that I used to spend some of my teenage years gently drifting off to sleep to some of the Resident Evil save room classics. Good luck with that in Village though, because that massive trollop Lady Dimitrescu is walking around the castle clobbering a dock off high heels, making a right fucking racket, while I'm trying to drift off like...
Ah! The fuck? Shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up! Jesus Christ!
There has been some real next level video game marketing from Capcom. The hype surrounding the game, the demos, the preying on the nostalgia factor, and of course the whole Lady Dimitrescu big whopping sexy lady vampire thing. Capcom were not fucking around and they knew exactly which marketing buttons to press, and it wasn't exactly rocket science either. I imagine they just called a meeting to decide on how they're going to sell the next Resident Evil, like...
I'm going to start with the breasts.
Oh, naturally.
Right, okay?
Right. Oh, those are
Beautiful.
big.
Bountiful.
I would say so.
Gorgeous, right?
Oh,
you see?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, that is some... Damn, dude, you can draw. I'm getting kind of like a little flustered.
Yeah, well, that's understandable.
Overall, I think Resident Evil Village is a great game, but I'm actually looking back on my notes from this video and I'm actually not seeing that many positives. The main reason why I still massively enjoyed the game has definitely resided on the fun factor and the intensity felt in combat, which has taken a step away from the traditional Resident Evil gameplay pattern, but what even is the pattern of Resident Evil games anymore? Some might not be happy with the regularity of changes in the series, but I'm okay with it, and I've been happy with virtually every Resident Evil game I've played. Except for 6, obviously, that game can suck a bag of dicks. But Village still has plenty of positives. It's not the best game I've played in the series, but it's absolutely not the worst either. I'd argue that making these changes keeps the franchise fresh and interesting, and I'm wondering where Capcom will go from here. A Resident Evil 4 remake is on the cards, which I'm super hyped for, but what about the next main entry in the series? That unknown is at least something exciting to ponder over, whereas with other franchises that I've enjoyed over the years, like Ubisoft's latest Assassin's Creed games, or Watch Dogs for example, I knew exactly what I was getting before I even played, with virtually no surprises whatsoever, whereas with Ubisoft's Immortal Phoenix Rising, that was a surprise, an amazing one I thoroughly enjoyed. Change can be a good thing. I hope Capcom continue to experiment and make minor changes to freshen up the franchise whilst also keeping fan feedback in mind so as not to deviate from its roots too much, maintaining a decent level of quality and balance for future Resident Evil games that will hopefully appease the taste of all Resi fans. Thanks for watching, peeps. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like and slam your monstrous Lady D-sized breasticles onto that subscribe button. Hope to catch you in the next one. Peace out.